Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely breathtaking weekend of motorsport. We are, of course, talking about the 2026 Italian Grand Prix at Mugello. Now, this wasn't just another race on the calendar, not even close. It was a weekend of extreme scale, high-speed drama, shattered records, and honestly, some incredible emotional redemption. We're going to break down exactly how Aprilia delivered a total masterclass performance right on Ducati's home turf. Okay, let's dive into this. 173,000. That is the record-breaking number of roaring, incredibly passionate fans that packed into the Tuscan hills. The atmosphere was completely electric. I mean, writers were literally describing it as incredible and crazy. If you were there, you probably couldn't even hear yourself think. The fans were out there celebrating the 50th anniversary of racing at this legendary circuit. And, in true Mugello fashion, they were partying day and night. Spectators were blasting motorcycle engines, and get this, some even brought their own chainsaw engines just to add to the deafening wall of sound. It was the absolute perfect stage for what was about to unfold. So let's get right into Act 1. The hometown hero takes Mugello. Now, every great stage needs a great protagonist, right? Which brings us to our first major storyline, the absolute dream victory of local Italian rider Marco Bezzecchi. To really appreciate what Bezzecchi pulled off, you have to understand the sheer layout of Mugello. It's this grueling 5.245-kilometer ribbon of asphalt featuring these sweeping high-speed corners and a massive 1.1-kilometer main straight. It's demanding, it's fast, and it severely punishes mistakes. Early in the 23-lap Sunday Grand Prix, defending local champ Francesco Bagnaia took the lead, looking very much like his vintage championship-winning self. But pacing is everything at Mugello. Bezzecchi didn't panic. He just bided his time right behind Bezzecchi, and when the moment was right, Bezzecchi surged past the Ducati rider and just took off into the distance, ultimately crossing the finish line a commanding 3.559 seconds ahead of the pack. You really can't overstate the weight of this victory. When Bezzecchi pulled into Parc Formé, the emotion was just pouring out of him. He told the press, "It's something that I was dreaming since when I was a kid. To achieve this dream is amazing." He even switched over to his native Italian to thank the crowd directly. Think about it. An Italian rider winning his first Italian Grand Prix, riding an Italian bike in front of nearly 180,000 screaming fans, that is literally the absolute pinnacle of a racer's career. Moving right along to Act 2, Aprilia's historic fairytale weekend. Bezzecchi's win was actually just the crown jewel in a much, much larger story. The entire Aprilia manufacturer absolutely dominated the weekend, scoring a dream 1-2 finish with Bezzecchi and his teammate Jorge Martin. I mean, let's rapid-fire some of these statistical milestones because they are staggering. This was Aprilia's first ever premier-class victory and 1-2 finish at Mugello. Team bosses were literally calling it the perfect script. During qualifying, Bezzecchi completely smashed the all-time lap record with a blistering 143.921 to secure pole. And the straight-line speed? Unreal. Going into this 2026 season, which remember is the final year of the 1000cc MotoGP machines, both Bezzecchi and Martin clocked an astounding new top speed record of 368.6 kilometers per hour. That is roughly 229 miles per hour. Oh, and to top the whole thing off, Aprilia's satellite team, Trackhouse Racing, took the victory in Saturday's sprint race. And there is a profoundly human element behind that sprint victory. It was won by Trackhouse Aprilia rider Raul Fernandez. Coming into Mugello, Fernandez had been struggling heavily with his form, and he was facing some really serious questions about his contract future for 2027, especially with all the rumors of other riders eyeing his seat. After fending off Jorge Martin to win the sprint, Fernandez actually admitted he was crying a bit. He stated firmly that he is a professional and he will give his best for Trackhouse until the end of 2026. It was just this incredible moment of emotional redemption when the pressure was at its absolute highest. All right, let's shift gears to Act 3, a last-lap thriller. Now, as dominant as Aprilia was at the very front of the Grand Prix, the battle just behind them gave us the absolute most nail-biting on-track action of the entire weekend. Let's pivot to Sunday's intense fight for the final podium spot. This was a classic matchup of defense versus momentum. On one side, you've got Ducati's Pecco Bagnaia. He led early but was now exhausted, struggling heavily with rear tire grip as the race closed out. On the other side, the emerging dark horse, Ai Ogura on the Trackhouse Aprilia. Ogura had started all the way down in 13th position. He had been picking off riders one by one, setting lap times a full second faster than Bagnaia in the closing stages. As they started the final lap, Ogura was a massive 0.9 seconds behind Bagnaia, but by the time they reached the final 4 corners, Ogura had completely erased that gap. Bagnaia knew he was a sitting duck. As he noted after the race, he just tried to leave no space for Ai. On the penultimate corner, Ogura made his move on the brakes and actually managed to pass Bagnaia. But the momentum pushed Ogura just slightly wide. Bagnaia, using every single ounce of his track knowledge and veteran instinct, immediately slipped right back up the inside on the exit, setting up a desperate drag race down that massive 1.1-kilometer straight to the finish line. And this brilliantly illustrates just how tight things got. 0.034 seconds. That razor-thin margin is all that separated Bagnaia's Ducati and Ogura's Aprilia as they crossed the line. Bagnaia managed to barely cling to 3rd place, keeping Ducati on the podium at their home race. But man, Ogura's jaw-dropping charge from 13th, that proved for sure that he is a serious threat capable of fighting the factory riders.
Next up, Act 4, the veterans' defiant return.
So while the youngsters were battling at the front, there was an equally compelling, super gritty fight happening just behind them, with an all-time great returning from injury. Marc Márquez missed the previous round in Catalonia to undergo surgery to relieve a compressed radial nerve in his right shoulder. Now, Mugello, with its relentless high-speed directional changes, is widely considered one of the most physically demanding tracks on the calendar for a right arm injury. He easily could have waited for a less punishing track, but instead, Márquez returned to the grid and fought through immense pain. Throughout the Grand Prix, he was locked in a fierce back-and-forth battle with Pedro Acosta, ultimately finishing a highly impressive 5th in the sprint and 7th in the Grand Prix. He was showing genuine flashes of his old brilliance out there. What is truly fascinating here is Márquez's perspective on his weekend. When asked about his performance, he delivered this incredibly grounded quote. He wasn't there chasing immediate championship glory. He explicitly stated that he's there to try to be longer in his career. It wasn't a championship charge, it was a defiant, gritty battle for survival. He wanted to test himself, push through the recovery, and basically lay the groundwork to extend his legendary career in MotoGP.
Let's zoom out a bit for Act 5, Championship Impact and Mugello Magic.
So, we have the emotional victories, the last lap battles, and the gritty comebacks. But what does this all mean for the big picture? Well, looking at the standings, Marco Bezzecchi's perfect weekend allows him to extend his lead at the top of the championship table to 173 points. That gives him a really solid 17-point cushion over his teammate Jorge Martin, who sits in 2nd. But Martin staying that close means the title fight is very much alive. Further down, Fabio Di Giannantonio holds 3rd, despite a tough race, and Pedro Acosta remains in 4th. But look at 5th place. Ai Ogura's spectacular ride pushes him right up into the top 5 with 92 points, officially marking him as the dark horse of this championship. And looking at the broader manufacturer battle, the electric Mugello crowd witnessed what really looks like a true changing of the guard. Ducati has historically owned Mugello, it's their backyard, but this weekend belonged entirely to Aprilia. With their 1-2 finish in the Grand Prix and their sprint victory, Aprilia has now extended their Constructors' Championship lead to 218 points, leaving Ducati trailing in 2nd with 188 points. It was an absolute knockout blow delivered right on their rivals' home soil. Which brings us to the ultimate question for the rest of the season. With Mugello officially conquered in such dominant, record-breaking fashion, can anyone stop Aprilia from claiming their first ever MotoGP Riders' title in 2026? Bezzecchi and Martin look nearly untouchable right now. But hey, with margins as thin as 0.034 seconds, anything can happen in MotoGP. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and we will see you next time as the 2026 season continues to unfold.